And I suspect a large amount of public concern because of the impacts that some homes have been experiencing, certainly up in the area of my neighborhood. I'm fortunate mine has not come to that type of a situation, but despite that, knowing that we have administration here in the room to speak to this report, we'll bring them forward to the podium. And the same process that we'll use is to bring forward delegations after the administrative presentation, and then members of council will be able to ask questions of delegates, and they'll be able to ask questions following that of administration before they go into their debate and decision making on that. As I say, the detailed analysis that's here before you, were rather lucky at the municipality to in fact have a NAPEGA certified civil engineer. We stole him from Suncor, and so despite the fact that he's fairly new, he's become our deputy CAO, and I'm hopeful that you'll give him some great latitude in trying to get this information through to council, because it is very technical in nature, but hopefully he'll dummy it down for at least me and hopefully other members of the council as well.
Madam Mayor and Councillors. So this evening I'm going to give you an overview of the July 12th, 2015 storm. Oh, and I'm sorry, I should introduce, I have Amy McGowan, she's our Manager of Sustainable Operations, and Darcy Dragonetti, our Director of Environmental Services. So I do have a bit of a cold, so they're able to take over the reins for me here. So I did want to give you an overview tonight of the July 12th storm that we experienced and its impact, which did result in a number of sewer backups in the Timberlea B's area. That's the streets in the Timberlea area starting with B. We'll also talk about the history of the area in terms of development standards, what we've done and are doing about the issue, including the current construction project underway, the Confederation Way Sanitary bypass. And we'll also present information on the August 30th, 2015 water main break, which entered the sewer system and caused some backups in the area. So I'm going to jump around a bit from the sequence, as this will actually give a clearer picture of the situation and the actions being taken. But throughout the presentation, we'll discuss the existing sewer system, what we believe caused backups in July, and work that we've done over the past 5 years, including flow monitoring, which has led to the current project under construction in the area. So we'll start with discussing the existing sewer system in the area. So for the existing sewer system in the area, we'll talk about the development of the broader Timberlea area, the different types of sewer connections throughout Timberlea, the progression of development standards through the years, and we'll explain what inflow and infiltration are. So this is the sequencing of design standards throughout the years in the Timberlea area. The B's neighborhood, as we call it, was the first area of Timberlea development to be built. It was constructed in the early 1980s, and it was further developed in late 1990s. So you can see the sequencing here. Subsequent sections of Timberlea were developed, resulting in our current community. So the first area developed, the Timberlea B's, permitted weeping tile connections to the sewer system according to the development standards in place at that time, and that is exactly what happened. Keep this in mind as we show you some figures of system performance later on. The Timberlea B's with the weeping tiles connected to the sewer, and the remainder of Timberlea with the weeping tiles not connected to the sewer. So when an urban lot is developed today, there are typically two service connection lines from the home or the building to the main sewer lines in the street. So there's a connection to the sanitary service, sewer service, and there's a connection to the storm service connection. So the sanitary sewer receives sanitary waste from flows such as toilets, showers, and dishwashers, and directs them to the main sanitary trunk. The storm service connection directs any stormwater flows, which could be from the house's sump pump, its weeping tiles, or its rain gutters, into the main storm trunk. So having both service connections is actually required as per our current 2013 development standards, or as we call them, engineering servicing standards. The municipality determines these detailed guidelines, and all developments within the municipality must abide by them. So this is what you would see for sewer and storm system connections in a new build in Fort McMurray today. Our development standards have evolved over time to reflect advances in development and engineering best practices, and to incorporate new, more robust technical standards. So the current 2013 standards mandate that a lot must have both sewer service connections and that the weeping tiles must connect to the storm system. They also stipulate that the connection of weeping tiles of roof leaders to the sanitary system is not allowed. If we wind back the clock, the standards in the early 1980s, when the majority of the Bees neighborhood was developed, are different. The 1978 standards were much less prescriptive and did not exclude any particular connections to the sanitary sewer line, such as weeping tiles or roof leaders. As early as 1985, weeping tile was no longer permitted to be connected to the sewer in certain situations, but of course by that time the Timberlea B deep utilities had been installed for the eventual entire build-out of the area, some of which did not start until the mid-90s. So as a result, many of the homes in the Bees neighborhood have their weeping tiles, sump pumps, and even roof leaders connected to the sanitary sewer system. We have some statistics from a survey of the area in 2011 we'll share later in the presentation, but we understand from a 2012 engineering report that was part of this that approximately 80% of the homes in the area have their weeping tiles connected to the sanitary sewer system. This results in stormwater being directed into the sanitary sewer system, which is referred to as a source of inflow. And inflow and infiltration is not uncommon in older communities with the standards of the day and aged infrastructure. So the figure on the left is the one that I showed you before, and it's generally the current standards and what you'd see at a brand new home with brand new sewer and storm connections. So in the new development, the weeping tile, roof drains, and catch basin are connected to the storm system and are separate from the sewer system. In our current standards, we actually don't permit connection of the roof drains to the storm system or the sanitary. The figure on the right is how the Timberlea Bs are configured with inflow connections and infiltration source possibilities. So in this configuration, the roof drains can be connected and weeping tiles are connected to the sewer system. There can be cross connections between the storm and the sewer, and in some instances, storm catch basins are connected to the sanitary system. It is also very important to differentiate between inflow and infiltration. So inflow is from the improper connections, the roof drains, the weeping tiles, the catch basins. And infiltration is groundwater that enters the sanitary system through cracked pipes, leaking manholes, tree roots impinging, cleanouts that are left uncapped during maintenance. So this happens over time. In other words, it's more prevalent in older infrastructure. So we're going to jump ahead a bit now to the project currently in construction, which is the solution to the inflow issue. We're currently constructing an upgraded sewer line in the neighborhood to provide additional capacity within the system. This capital project is referred to as the Confederation Way Sanitary Sewer Bypass. So it's being built in two phases. Phase one is replacing the sewer mains at the upstream end of the Timberlea neighborhood in the residential area. And there's two contractors undertaking the project. The upstream contractor is responsible for the mains and service connections, basically the residential area. The downstream contractor is responsible for the main with no service connections, basically from the intersection of Brett and Burns through to connection at Confederation Way. So this will mitigate approximately 70% of the flooding problem in the area for a 1 in 100 year storm of 4 hours duration, and is much more effective for less intense storms. Phase two would be twinning and replacing the sewer main along Confederation Way from Eagle Ridge to Highway 63. And this takes care of the remainder of the 30% of the flooding issue. So administration is going to be recommending phase two for construction in 2016 in the upcoming capital budget. So a little bit back to phase one here. I just want to make clear that this is an upgrade. It's not a replacement in kind of existing sewers. So the sewer mains in the residential area are being upsized. Right now they vary from 200 to 250 to 300 millimeters. They're being upgraded to 600 and 750 millimeter mains. And the new pipe that twins the system from Brett Drive Storm Pond to Confederation is a 750 millimeter main. The one main down there right now is 525 millimeters. So this will be an additional main on top of the one that's there. So it is not a replacement in kind. It's a major upgrade, and it's capable of handling a 1 in 100 year storm of 4 hours duration. Where the project is at currently, this figures as of September 11th. So the orange is pipe that's been, or parts of the project completed, except for restoration work, and the green is pipe that has been installed to date. So the upstream portion has fallen behind schedule, which is in the residential area, and it will not be fully completed this year. We estimate 65% of it will be complete, and we'll discuss the impacts of this later in the presentation. The final construction will begin early next season, and we anticipate having it completed in early July. But the critical component is the downstream portion from the Brett Pond to Confederation, as this allows the system to be put into service even if it's not fully complete. So this portion is about 3 days behind schedule, and I understand they made up some time this weekend, so we are projecting it to be 100% complete and connected, and the system will be in operation at the end of this construction season. So the final leg there you can see is residents will notice the final leg we're building there. There's currently a detour on Ludit Road that started yesterday, and that's to do the final section. I wanted to clarify the priority this project has been given since the thunderstorm that occurred in 2010 in the area that resulted in a number of backups. As we commonly hear comments that it has not been a priority in favor of other capital projects in the region. This project has been on the approved capital list since 2012, when analysis work done after the 2010 storm identified the need for the project. At no time has it been removed from the list, deferred, or canceled in favor of other capital projects in the region. In the fall of 2014, administration recommended this project as the highest ranked project in the entire municipality, and it was approved by council as such. And in March of this year, during the capital budget review, administration again had it as the highest ranked project, and again, it was approved by council as such. So now we'll talk about the results of the analysis work we've done that has led to the construction of the project underway. Basically, why are we doing this project, and why are we doing exactly what we're doing? So in response to an August 2010 thunderstorm that caused a number of sewer backups in the area, in 2011, the municipality began a flow monitoring program for the urban service area. The results from the 2011 and 2012 flow monitoring data showed that the sanitary sewer system in the upstream neighborhood of Timberlea did not have capacity, specifically during intense rain events. Once it was determined that there was a capacity issue during large storm events, we undertook additional work to understand what were the contributors to the capacity issues. So we undertook a series of flow monitoring studies, technical engineering analysis, resident engagements, and community surveys and data collection to find the cause of the issue. This work determined that the majority of the problem was related to inflow and infiltration. Specifically, the issue was inflow from the improper connection of weeping tiles and roof leaders to the sanitary sewers, lot grading issues on individual lots, the lack of sump pumps, and the lack of backflow preventers. So the municipality performed technical studies, analyzed options, and came out with a project design, the current construction project, by which the sewer mains will take the sanitary flow, the infiltration, and the extraneous inflows, specifically the weeping tiles and the roof drains and that. And in short, we're in process of adding capacity to the system. The final project design was based on ever-changing flow monitoring data as the engineering analysis continued. A solution was delivered in 2012, but we were not fully convinced of it, so we retained another consultant to review the first consultant's work to look at options and recommend new options. This study determined that the solution at that time was only 60% effective for a 1 in 100-year storm. So for a major capital investment, we would still see sewer backups in the area during the upper range of intense storms. For comparison, the current solution under construction is 98% effective for a 1 in 100-year storm. For the storm in July, we estimate if we'd done this original solution that it would have been 75 to 85% effective, which means 15 to 25% of the manholes in the area could have still been surcharged, which could have led to sewer backups. So in short, we would have still had issues after spending $40 million. On a cost comparison basis, we estimate the current project will be 30% more expensive than the original solution, but it will give us 38% improvement in effectiveness and take us up to the 98% I was talking about. The final project design was based on increasing inventory of flow monitoring data as the engineering analysis continued from 2011 through to 2014. This enabled the municipality to alter the design to the best solution, resulting in a more effective solution and providing more value for the incremental cost. The new solution also has significantly less impacts on residents that will be directly connected to the system and overall traffic impacts in the area as well as adjacent areas. So we've been running models on this for some time. This is what our model suggests would have happened on July 12th with the system as is on the left-hand side of the picture. It is fairly representative as we have calibrated it with flow monitoring data from 2011 through 2014. If anything, the model is a bit conservative and overstates impacts. So basically red is bad. That means that the sewer manholes are surcharged and there's a risk of sewer backups at the red location. If this storm had happened next year when we had phase 1 complete, the figure on the right is what we would have expected would have happened. So the system would have performed under those storm conditions. I should note that this is for the July 12th storm event and not for the 1 in 100 year storm event of 4 hours that we're designing for. So if the 1 in 100 hits before we have phase 2 done, we expect the system will have 70% effectiveness. And after phase 2 is completed next year, if approved by council during the budget, we will have 98% effectiveness for what is the upper limit of feasible solutions, the 1 in 100 year storm of 4 hour duration. That is the upper limit. So what we have in this slide here is again, on the left is the 1 in 100 year storm of 4 hours. If it was to hit with the existing system, you would see again the prevalent reds. And on the right-hand side is the solution we're implementing here, phase 1 and phase 2. So it effectively mitigates a 1 in 100 year storm of 4 hours. Now we'll talk a little about the history of backups and information we've collected about properties since 2010. So a brief recap, as I mentioned, in August 2010, there was a large thunderstorm that resulted in a number of backups reported to the municipality. This event triggered the investigation of the issue and commenced with budgeting for analysis work in the fall of 2010 that we submitted for the 2011 operating budget, which was approved by council. Noting that we did do some limited study work right away in 2010 with available funds that we had in the operating budget. This is a chart of sewer backup complaints received by underground services in the Timberlea B areas until present. I will know it's not entirely accurate, but we have used it for consistency. And by not entirely accurate, the number of claims to insurance services and underground services combined for July 12th is 64, but UGS received 56 of those calls. And we've used UGS data as we did not receive any complaints through insurance services prior to 2010. So these might be a little understated, and we'll say that, but we're just using it for consistency of calls to our underground services department. So the dark blue calls are calls confirmed to be associated with a storm event. The light blue calls we have not been able to conclusively link to a storm event. That's not saying that they're not associated. The issue is mostly due to lack of meteorological data in the area. So from 1996 to October 2011, hourly precipitation data was not available from the Fort McMurray Airport Climate Station, as it was not maintained by the federal government. So we only have daily precipitation data for those days, and we can't look at it on an hourly basis. I will acknowledge not everybody calls in sewer backups. We know of instances where we've not been notified. But what I want to point out on this graph is that the first major occurrence of backups was in August 2010, when just under 20 sewer backups were reported. When this occurred, administration immediately began investigation of the issue, budgeting the flow monitoring program that started in 2011 and the subsequent work which led to the capital project currently in construction. Other than 2010 and 2015, UGS has typically received less than five sewer backup calls a year, with a couple of exceptions when up to 7 were received. And from 2011 to 2014, after the 2010 storm, the years were comparable with historical performance of the system, and less than 5 sewer backups reported each year. As part of the 2011 data collection, the municipality surveyed lots in the area. There are 1,574 homes in the project area, of which 641 homeowners were interviewed, approximately 40% of the total, and drainage assessments were conducted on 332 lots, or approximately 20% of the total lots in the project area. These were uniformly distributed throughout the neighborhood to eliminate any sampling bias. So in terms of grading, overall about 35% of the lots have flat or reverse grading. Reverse grading allows runoff from the lot and downspouts to enter the weeping tiles, which drain to the sanitary sewer system in southwest of Timberlea. These conditions contribute to excess inflow and infiltration into the sanitary sewer system. They also contribute to basement flooding through window wells, seepage through basement wall cracks, and eventually to plugging of the weeping tiles. In terms of downspouts, the data show that only 19% of the downspout extensions are longer than 1.5 meters from the foundation wall. Generally, it has been found that extensions less than 1.5 meters allow for a significant portion of the roof runoff to drain into the weeping tiles and thus into the sanitary sewers. In terms of backwater valves, at the time of the survey, most residents did not know if they have a backwater valve or not. Another name for that is a backflow preventer. Sump pumps, the survey indicates that approximately 20% of the lots have a sump pump. These are mostly located on the east side of the project area where homes were constructed after the year 2000 when sump pumps were first required in the municipality standards. In the older areas west of Brett Drive, there are a few sump pumps, and many of these are likely to be located on the weeping tile line as this was the standard of the day. Throughout the various stages of technical analysis, we also did CCTV or closed circuit television investigations to determine the status of piping. So we did the first assessment in 2010, 2011 after the August 2010 storm, and then we did another inspection in 2012. So we didn't do all the pipes, but we've done 5+ of the pipes. What that initial look at the pipes told us was that the CTT inspections completed for limited parts of the system showed the pipes were in reasonably good structural condition considering their age and service condition. With the completion of the current project, we're planning to undertake further review of existing local pipes to complement the major upgrade undertaken. And this is part of a bigger program related to work we're doing to build our asset management program for the entire region. So it's not specifically about this area. The picture here, I won't go into great detail, it's pictures of a sewer, but it's a snapshot of some camera work, and it's for Burrard Crescent. And the brown lines represent the inspected pipe. And as noted by the assessment of this, only small areas of minor sags were noted. So the issue is the inflow that we're going to keep coming back to. It's not about sags or cracks or anything like that. So in addition to the flow monitoring and technical investigations, the municipality reached out to the residents of the area with updated information as it became available, and also collected information from residents to help our analysis. So some of the key engagements were as followed. As discussed in 2011 and 2012, we surveyed 40% of the residents in the area, or I should say the property, sorry. Did they have a backflow preventer? Did they have a sump pump? Have they previously flooded? And we further physically assessed 20% of the properties where we actually went out and looked at them for their lot grading, where their downspouts were going. In 2012, we had an open house for the capital project. On May 30th, we sent out 230 invitation letters. We did radio advertisements for the open house, played on May 28th to 30th on the 4 major radio stations, 10 times each per day. We did an open house, which included a PowerPoint presentation, and a pamphlet on residential flooding was developed and distributed to the participants. Unfortunately, we only had 20 participants at the open house. In 2014, we undertook an active public engagement program with community coffee talks, where we would talk on the phone and we would even come to your house and meet with you. And in February 2014, we mailed a brochure to all residents in the area. In 2015 of this year for the project, we had 2 open houses. We distributed for the first one 1,712 flyers through Canada Post, and we advertised in Fort McMurray today. Again, unfortunately, 26 participants showed up. On May 7th, we had a kind of a special one for 135 homes. We did get 43 participants out to that. So this is the brochure that was mailed to all residences in 2014 that talks about the issues. So to recap, following the August 2010 storm, administration undertook physical monitoring in the field, both with quantitative flow monitoring and collecting information from residents to design a capital solution, which is currently under construction. This information is contained in 12 engineering reports or technical memos prepared since the August 2010 report or storm. Sorry. So now we're going to talk about the existing system and the storm event on July 12th. So coming back to today, our community recently experienced an intense storm on July 12th. It resulted in several homes experiencing backups. 64 have been reported to the municipality to date. Staff are currently undertaking an internal technical assessment to ensure all details regarding the event and local infrastructure are captured. This internal assessment includes a closer look at the overall sewer system capacity, ongoing construction activities, and rainfall data. So I'll share some key highlights from the assessment results compiled to date. At this time, these results are preliminary and not finalized. So again, this slide is here as a comparison to some of the next slides of different scenarios we'll show you. It also illustrates that our model captures the entire Timberlea area with the build out from 1978 to present day. And in fact, it captures the entire service area, urban service area, which we haven't shown here. This particular scenario illustrates what is expected to happen in the Timberlea area if a 1 in 100 year storm of 4 hours were to occur with the existing sanitary sewer system. So remember, this is we'll show you, this is the before, we'll show you the after when the construction is completed. This is a scenario for the storm that actually happened on July 12th. Our model is based on a 4-hour duration, so this is a 1 in 25 scenario based on the rain data from the airport on July 12th. It could be a little bit more or a little less intense given the distance between Timberlea and the airport, but it's all the data we have at the moment. It's not a 1 in 100 year storm as we used in the previous scenario. But if for a moment we pretended this was 2000 and no other development occurring yet, and the July 12th storm happened, the backup profile is pretty much the same as it is with development that occurred after 2000. This basically tells us the same thing as the previous slide. All the sewer levels in the manholes are surcharged, shown as red, and present the risk of sewer backups. So what this tells us is the backups appear to have occurred because of the storm intensity and the lack of capacity on the system because of the weeping tile connections and other associated lot issues. Of course, during a storm, the weeping tile fills with precipitation, which drains to the sewer system with the configuration we talked about. Basically, there's more water going into the sewer pipe than it can move, so the sewer backs up as it has no place else to go. There's been some discussion that construction underway contributed. With the storm magnitude, backups would have occurred if the construction was not underway at many residences, as shown by the modeling on the previous slide. Our work in the past few years indicates the system can take at best a 1 in 5 year storm for 4 hours before backups start. And this storm was in the range of a 1 in 50 year storm for its first 2 hours and 1 in 25 year storm over the 4 hours total that there was rain. We're not done with this portion yet, continue to do a thorough investigation, but at this point the construction does not appear to be a significant factor. The main issue is the pipes are too small for the inflow we have measured, and the system could not take this storm that occurred. This is the rainfall on July 12th as recorded on the Environment Canada system at the airport. In the first hour, 22.6 millimeters fell, and in the second hour, 14.4 millimeters fell, for a total of 37 millimeters in 2 hours. This is important. I'll come back to that in a couple slides. So if you take that 37 millimeters over 2 hours, the average rainfall for the first 2 hours of the storm is 18.5 millimeters an hour, and the average of the 4-hour storm is 10.45 millimeters an hour. So unfortunately, we are assuming the rainfall at the airport is the same as Timberlea, as it's the only data we have. We did have rain gauges set up with the monitoring program for the past few years, but as we're not pursuing that program this year with the construction, we didn't have rain gauges in place. We don't think the intensity was much less in Timberlea and could have even been higher than the airport, but we don't know for sure one way or the other, so we're basing our models on the airport data. So if you take those averages that I gave you, if we take the average rate for the first 2 hours of the storm, 18.5 millimeters, and insert it into the chart for 2 hours, the storm is a 1 in 50 year storm. And these curves are based on data collected at the Fort McMurray Airport from 1966 to 1995. Similarly, if we take the 4-hour average, 10.45 millimeters, the entire storm was a 1 in 25 year event. And again, we recognize the uncertainty and the intensity. In the 29-year period of rainfall data collected at the Fort McMurray Airport, which was used to develop the intensity, duration, frequency curves that are used to design our infrastructure, the largest 2-hour rainfall event occurred in 1973 with 33.8 millimeters of rain, as highlighted in the table. The July 12th rainfall event exceeded this with 37 millimeters of rain in 2 hours. So we did experience a very significant storm in July. There's nothing in recent history of its magnitude, noting, of course, we don't have hourly data from 1996 to 2011. So inflow and infiltration, predominantly inflow, appears to be the main cause of sewer backups during high-intensity storms. This is based on work that started immediately after an August 2010 thunderstorm that resulted in just under 20 backups in the area. The current capital project underway will effectively prevent future backups during high-intensity storms. The July 12th storm, as recorded at the Fort McMurray Airport, was significant and unprecedented in recent history. It has less than 10% chance of occurring in the time frame from commencing action on this issue through to partial mitigation of the inflow issues during the intense storms this year. And the system being built can withstand even more intense, longer storms than the area experienced on July 12th. As discussed, construction is behind on the upstream component. However, once the downstream component is connected this year, substantial mitigation is in place. We expect with the construction completed this season to have a system effectiveness of 50% against the July 12th storm reoccurring. We will recommence construction in 2016 as soon as weather permits, and the effectiveness will increase each day. We will continue with an interim operational plan I will discuss shortly to reduce the impacts of rain for areas still not connected. We anticipate being done construction and to have phase 1 fully operational early in the summer next year. At the end of this construction season, the issue is mitigated for Burns, Brosseau, Brooks, Burrard, and portions of Barber and Bussiere. So this is the expected system performance at the end of this season for a 1 in 25-year storm. So as I mentioned, Burns, Brett, Brosseau, Brooks, Burrard, and portions of Barber and Bussiere are no longer an issue, and we can focus our interim operations plan on the outstanding areas. So in terms of an interim operations plan, I'm sure residents have noticed a number of vacuum trucks in the area of late. When the forecast is calling for rain, we pre-position vac trucks in the area and mobilize underground services personnel to monitor levels in the sewer. We'll continue with this plan during periods of forecasted rain until phase 1 is complete. So for next steps, the work to date is preliminary. Over approximately the next 8 to 12 weeks, administration will strive to finalize the work, which we'll have reviewed by a third party for verification of findings. This work will include approximate cause analysis, which will be provided to the municipality's insurer. The insurer will determine the risk that the municipality may be liable for damage and loss of third parties. And administration will report out the findings to council, and members of the public can access the information to draw their own conclusions with respect to the municipality's liability for loss or damage. So we are close to wrapping up, but we also wanted to provide an overview of the water main break that occurred on August 30th. So at 9:30 p.m. on the 30th, an excavation wall sloughed and broke a water main in the excavation. So this photo shows the excavation wall beginning to slough on the opposite side of the excavation from the water main, where the other wall of the excavation sloughed. The leak was indicated by water loss on telemetry at the water treatment plant and residents reporting low water pressure in their homes. So the water from the broken main flooded the excavation, which contained an open sewer manhole associated with the construction project. The water entered this water entered the sewer, and it appears to have caused sewer backups in some homes in the area, with 7 residents reporting backups to the municipality to date. So this photo shows the broken water main and the sewer manhole the water flowed into when the excavation filled. Underground services staff and the contractor worked through the night and the next day to restore the water service. The Timberlea school and affected residents were supplied with temporary water by the municipality until full service could be restored. And so this photo shows the line has been repaired and it's got the sand pack around it. So next steps for August 30th is affected residents should contact their insurance provider and take reasonable action to minimize further damage. Affected persons or their insurer may file a notice of claim with the municipality if they have not already. The municipality is passing notices of claims to our insurer, and the municipality's insurer ultimately makes its own determination if there is any legal responsibility on the part of the municipality and confirms or denies compensation to affected persons. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the very detailed presentation. I know there's been a lot of occurrences that are happening, and I'm sure questions are abundant in the homes certainly that have been affected. When I look at the path of construction that we've taken, has there ever been a delay that was implemented because of anything other than moving from 60 to 98% in terms of the efficiency? Was that 1 year that we lost because we were not satisfied with the first report?
To the mayor, pretty much, yes.
Okay, and the 30% cost upside going to that, I guess I'm curious. So we're dealing with this specific residential area because of the priority that's there right now. We're seeing these breaks and occurrences that are happening. But what does the rest of our sewer system look like? So if this one is one in that area that can't handle the 1 in 25s of any rate frequency, do we have the rest of the area in a better stead? Or like, just help me understand anything for construction from, Timberlea, basically that subdivision right into the new subdivisions. How are we looking overall?
The mayor, so as part of our general duties in the municipality, we do what we call master planning. So we analyze the entire system. So we do models like Kevin showed in the presentation, but for the entire urban service area. So with all the data that we have for rainfall, sewer inflows, and everything that we outline in our engineering servicing standards, all that analysis that we've done to date has identified any areas in the sewer system that would require capital upgrades, whether it's for capacity issues or just aged infrastructure that needs to be replaced. So all of those are identified in our master plans and are streamlined into our capital budget process.
Okay, because that's what I was looking for. When we have the road surface problems that we have and we've got old infrastructure underneath, we look for a plan that takes us over, a longer period of history saying we're doing this much each year incrementally instead of trying to attack everything all at the same time. So I wanted to understand if this is part of an incremental improvement that we're doing in that in all areas of Wood Buffalo. So if I lived in Beacon Hill, are my pipes old and crappy, and do I need to get them fixed too? And what does the municipality do to ensure that we're keeping pace with what the demands are?
To the mayor, so our urban rehabilitation program is a function of a number of things. If the sewers need replacing, we'll go in and do the roads at the same time. There's some places where the sewers and the water are still good, but the road needs to be done, but we'll still do them at the same time. But if there's hot spots, so to speak, such as the Timberlea Bs, those are specific projects, right? So this is a separate infrastructure project from our urban rehab. So we're continually upgrading our infrastructure under the urban rehab, but when we see issues like this out of our master plans, that's where we'll do separate capital projects. So we're doing an upgrade on the Beacon Hill piping systems, the water, sewer, and the storm into the community, for example. We've done a lot of upgrades within Beacon Hill, but there's a separate capital project that you see on the books there where we're upgrading the supply and also the conveyance of sewage from that area.
Okay, thank you very much. So that just, all I want to do is go full circle back to the advice that we got that would give us a percentage increase to 60% ability to adapt versus the 98. I'm going to sit here and tell you I want 98 every time. And so how, when we're going through these repetitive upgrading exercises, do we ensure that we're not getting the 60% solution presented? That doesn't even make sense that somebody would give us something like that.
Through the chair to the mayor, so again, we have this model that we're very happy with now for the entire urban service area. We've calibrated it time after time. Like, I didn't explain it a lot, but during rain events in 2011 through 2014 in Timberlea, we actually had flow monitoring in place in the sewers, and we were actually monitoring some people's weeping tile as well, so we can see where those issues are. So, we're very comfortable with our model right now, and that's as Amy said, we take that model and it becomes part of our master plan, and then those master plan items are conveyed directly into the capital budget. So yes, we're on top of all those issues, and there's other considerations. This was a very carefully designed project as well. We didn't want to take out all of Brett Drive. That was one option for the entire summer. The other option was taking out the brand new trail system on Confederation, which was just built in 2011. So, we look certainly at the effectiveness, we look at the cost, but we also really try to work around resident impacts and minimize that impact as well. The construction was purposely scheduled around the school season. Unfortunately, it's run a little behind in the one area there. But.
All right. Thank you very much. And I do have a number of lights that are on. We were going to allow delegates to come forward, and I was about to forget them all over again. Council, I'll let you continue with your questions only at this time to administration so we can knock some of those off, and then we'll let the delegates come forward and we'll be able to question them as they do each of their presentations. So we'll go to Councillor Germain first, please.
Thank you, Mayor Blake. I just had a question through the chair regarding backflow preventers and what effect they would have had or could have had if residents either put them in or if we had a program that assisted residents to do that.
Performance of backflow preventers varies. So some residents have them, some don't. I have one myself that was put in by the previous owner, and they don't always function properly. I did take some flooding on July 12th. So that's the thing, is they're not a fail-safe thing, I guess you could say, just because one's in. The other problem is the more people that put backflow preventers in, it minimizes the sewage in their basement, but it gets passed on to their neighbors, right? So
Screw your neighbor.
It's a very controversial program to get into backflow preventers.
What if everyone had them? What about everyone in the problem area had them? How far would that push the material down the pipe?
Well, again, the pipe is too small. It can't get out of the community.
So it'd be
if everybody had a backflow preventer,
blow up the
what would have
manholes.
happened was not knowing basically if the manholes are completely surcharged, everybody had a backflow preventer, there's probably a pretty good probability that you would have sewage running down the streets.
Mm-hmm. So I know this is the question period, but I do want to say that I do appreciate the level of detail you gave, except for that graphic analysis. But everything
asked
after that
for
point
it.
was great. I appreciate that we had an event, that we tried to work to prevent it. We had a major event this summer. We're working to understand it. I just hope that instead of going through litigation, that we look at a program that helps support residents that have taken damage. Are we still doing some more work on whether that's an appropriate response to people's damaged basements, or is that something that the lawyers and insurance companies would have to work out? Or are we just going to do more research and try to figure out what's the best way to support our residents that have been affected by these storm events?
Through the chair, there's a wide range of options that are at council's discretion.
So is something else going to come back to council after we complete this analysis, where council then can follow up and make a decision or make a determination based on updated information?
Through the chair to Councillor Germain, so in about 2 to 3 months, we're proposing to come back with a final report.
Okay.
Which we would provide to our insurance provider with that proximate cause analysis. So at that point, then the insurance provider would make an assessment of liabilities on the municipality. And as I said, we'll make that report fully public, so members of the public can use it as they feel appropriate.
Okay, so right now, members of the public that have been affected should make sure they just report to our...
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the work that you and your department has done, and I appreciate the analysis.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll go now to Councillor Alt, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Kevin, Darcy, and Amy for the presentation and the detailed info. I have a lot of questions, so maybe I'll ask a few and then turn it over to some other folks. But Mayor Blake triggered one of the main ones that I was going to ask in terms of if this was a 1 in 50-year flood and we have other hot spots, as you called it, why was this the only area that flooded on July 12th if we had a 1 in 50-year rainfall?
Through the chair, as I said, I think the model's a little over conservative. I may defer to Amy here, but there's not many red spots throughout the rest of the areas in the urban service areas. And the couple small areas that we did see there's some red manholes. We have no reports of flooding from those areas, but they're very small relative to the Timberlea Bs. It's just kind of on the fringes where we might have to upgrade a small pipe or two.
And if I can, through the chair, to add to what Kevin said, that neighborhood in Timberlea specifically has significant number of connections of weeping tiles to the sanitary system. So what we see from our flow monitoring program is extremely high amounts of inflow, higher than normal and higher than most other areas in the city, if that helps to clarify.
Okay. In terms of the actual pipes, on slide 34, it says backup issues would appear during a 1 in 5-year event. So are we regulated by any government body in terms of having to upgrade our pipes at a certain point when you reach out in development or in those areas? When I think about like some of the older areas like the Beacon Hill Bs, for example, at what point did we upgrade them as compared to these other ones we build out?
Through the chair to Councillor Alt. So again, our flow modeling that we did over the last few years indicated that we could only take a 1 in 5-year at the best, but that's based on the fact of our findings where our inflow is much higher than it should be. So as Amy stated there, just to give some numbers, I believe inflow in Timberlea is 18%, and the rest of the urban service area, it's 1%. If I get the numbers right there.
18, yes, one, I'd have to double check.
But it's significantly higher, and that's the issue here, is that it was very, that's what we're establishing here, is that the pipes are not designed for this amount of inflow.
And in terms of, we're not regulated by any bodies for having certain width of pipes or anything like that? There are no...
No, that's the standards usually, as I understand, to the municipality, and you would design to certain standards. So you could design to a 1 in 10 or a 1 in 25. In this case, we're designing to a 1 in 100 year, which is the upper end. You would not see many designs in place for more than a 1 in 100 year storm.
Through the chair, if I can add to that, in our engineering servicing standards right now, we design most of our storm systems to 1 in 5 year storm. Our sanitary systems aren't designed to a storm because they're not supposed to have storm water in them. Yeah. So they're designed on loading.
If I might, Amy brings up a good point, is that because these are combination systems, we're designing a sewer system for a storm, which you normally wouldn't. And this option that we chose is, I guess, the upper end of options, as opposed to disconnecting weeping tiles and putting in backflow preventers. So rather than impact on the residents and with perhaps less effective solutions, we're just saying, fine, we'll leave things the way they are and we'll get rid of it through these big mains.
Which I think is the right decision going forward. It's just getting to that end point, I think, is the big gap there that we've experienced. One more question, I guess, and then I'll stop for a bit. In terms of, we're behind schedule now, and you mentioned that we'll be up hopefully at the downstream portion by the end of this season. So I'm not even sure if we're able to answer this here, but in terms of cost overruns now with the project, are we able to recoup some of those, or what happens in terms of, are we just having to, because of some of these mistakes that have been made, right, what happens in that end in terms of the cost overruns and catching up in the spring and that?
Through the chair to Councillor Alt, so that comes down to just administering the terms of the contract. So there is, of course, contracts in place for this work, and we would administer those accordingly.
Okay, I realize, yeah, you probably can't say a lot on that, but thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll go now to Councillor Marr, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And Amy, I understand more about cross-country skiing than I do engineering, so bear with me. The slide 21. Slide 21, you have two pictures. One is the existing system, and you said the red was trouble. And then you have the completed project. However, if you take a look down, I believe it's Lindstrom Crescent, the corner there, one poor fellow there with a red, he's still a red dot. Like, does that mean in any given situation he's going to be expected, or she's going to be expected to have stuff in the basement?
Yeah, through the chair, so there is one red dot, you're correct there. That's, we'll have to keep an eye on that one, but it's not actually, that section of pipe is not connected to any residences. That's just straight pipe through the bush and then up the green belt there.
So that's not a residence?
No, there's no residents connected. Like past the Brett Storm Pond there, there's no more residents connected.
Oh, that's
to
at the corner of the trail. Yeah, yes, okay.
Yeah.
I know exactly where it is now.
We have to watch that one and see how it performs, because we don't want a sewage overflow to the bush there. That's not permissible either. So.
Okay, thank you. My next question actually was one of my first questions I had written down. So we obviously had a contractor do this. I know the name of the contractor, I won't share it here, but I don't know if we're allowed to or not. Has this contractor done this type of work before? And the reason I ask that is the electrical box on slide 34, I believe it's on 34, I have to look, but it's pretty well, at least a quarter to a third buried underwater. This is, if just observing, this is the box that would produce the electricity for lights, etc., that he would run. If that box had have been going, wouldn't that have caused a lot of dangerous situations, especially around water?
Through the chair, that's a fair statement, yes. We're still investigating there, but that street filled up very fast. That excavation filled up with water in 6 minutes. It was that intense of a storm.
But you being an engineer, you put yourself, your construction hat on, wouldn't you position a big box that produced megavolts of energy above any predictable water line?
Through the chair, yeah, like I said, we still have a detailed investigation going on into the construction issues on July 12th there.
So I don't mean to be hard on you, but that prompted my question as to whether this company, this contractor, had done this type of work before. Because we always expect the unexpected, I guess. Okay. Madam Mayor asked my second question about are there any other neighborhoods, and thank you for that. Now, we have a report coming back to council. You said 8 to 10 weeks. Are you going to have a timeline of what happened that morning? Because you understand, Kevin, we're getting lots of calls. We've got, we work with people who were affected as well, and of course yourself, and certainly feel for you. Are we going to have a very intense timeline as to what happened on July 12th?
Through the chair, yeah, we'll provide the information that we're able to. I guess if there's contractual items, we may not be able to provide some of that, but we'll try to give as good a timeline as we can.
Okay. Because a lot of it, I guess, happened in the morning. Of course, it was during the summer. A lot of people had just moved away. And I guess my last point, Madam Mayor, and I'll talk engineering talk here. Work equals force over distance, correct? And the other way around, I don't know what we do with distance at the end, but the contractor was working through the day, but shutting down at night, correct? We probably could have doubled this up and got through this a lot quicker if we would have gone 24/7. I've asked this question before, and of course, with those electrical boxes and being able to have lights at night, couldn't we have just backed up from the bylaw or just asked for permission to go through the bylaw and do this quickly? And the reason I asked that is I lived in Abasand. The last few years I lived in Abasand, they started tearing the road up. I think it took 3 years to go about 3 kilometers. And it was like torn up and then it would patched up for the winter, torn up again. And it just seems to me that would be done a lot. I would rather have somebody be intense noise for 4 or 5 weeks than to have just daytime noise for 3 years. Have we looked into something like that for the future?
Through the chair, no. We understand your comments, and we've been thinking about them, and we'll see what we can do. I mean, obviously, we would want to engage with residents before we commit to working 24/7 sort of idea in residential neighborhoods. But you're certainly correct. It would bring the project costs down, and it would certainly get us out of the areas much faster if residents were willing to consider that.
Okay, thank you for your very detailed. You kind of killed us with detail there, as I would expect. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And as I promised, at this time, I'm going to ask administration to take seats out of the podium area. We're going to open the floor to delegates at this time. Anybody in the audience wishing to give their views to council can have up to 5 minutes of time. And you'll be subjected to questions of council if there are any. And first thing we'll ask is for you to identify yourself for the public
Diane
record.
Slater again. I feel very compelled to open dialogue with you folks on this particular situation. And one of my key reasons is to identify the human part that nobody seems to be talking. And I would like you all to sit here for a couple of seconds and put yourself in place of these people while I read you some facts. After reading the report, I note it fails to acknowledge that some residents have had floods as far back as 2002. However, more predominantly, 2008, 2010, 2013, and 2015. Some have had 2 in 15. The report further fails to recognize the cost. Some residents can no longer get insurance for floods. Those that can, a lot of them have had it capped at $15,000 to $20,000. which barely covers the cost of cleanup. And we haven't even started talking the reconstruction of their basements. What's concerning me is that the RMWB has known about this problem back to 2011, and some may want to argue with me, which is not a smart idea, that it is as far back as 2008. However, first construction wasn't scheduled for 2015. 4 years, people. 4 years. To me, that is, the lack of urgency shown by the municipality is a slap in the face to those taxpayers. You can see I'm pretty upset about it. Municipalities are the cornerstone of local government systems and enables municipalities to provide a wide variety of services that are reflective of their community's needs and desires. And I'm going to repeat those words again. Needs and desires. And Mayor Blake, you can roll your eyes if you want.
I'm not rolling my eyes, actually, Diane. I'm taking notes. I've got a few things written down already.
There appears to be a gap between the needs and the desires. I will ask you to make this decision. Would you rather pay for a scaffold-looking weather catcher at the tune of $2.1 million or ensure that our core services are provided? Now, you people need to answer that question because you're the elected officials, not me. Thank God. Tonight, I ask you to set a direction to administration versus accepting what was just presented to you as a report. Something needs to be done for these people. Because, folks, they're going to have, it was in the front page of the newspaper yesterday. They stopped work on it again. So now we're going to be 16, 17, and possibly 18. These people could flood possibly 2 times for the next 2.5 years. That is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I'm a firm believer that a healthy municipality is essentially one that has managed to achieve a social pact between citizens, organizations, institutions from various sectors to provide the population with a good quality of life. Healthy public policies, which I'm asking you to make tonight, seek to create a supportive environment that enables people to live a healthy life, make healthy choices, and transform social and physical environments. This is not an example of the community I know. It's not an example of what's happened. I'm going on to another subject because I'm worked up and I've talked to a few councillors. I recently retired, and within months, I've been contacted to assist on a number of planning and development issues. Rather than sit here and complain with you folks and go around in circles, I'm going to respectfully request that council consider establishing a small committee of forward, intuitive, outside-the-box thinkers to work with a couple of RMWB staff who are of the same mind to talk about the challenges and make recommendations to you. We have significant issues. And you know, I could sit here and not tell you about any of this because I'm making some pretty good money as a consultant. Again, this is not my community. I feel like everybody has just said, we're the bosses, you people do what you want to do. And I'm tired of it, you guys. I'm tired of it. I listened to the wisdom coming out of Sheldon some of the other councillors at the council meetings, and it's just going over their heads. And I'm sitting here going, come on.
Okay, thank
This
you,
is a
Ms.
community.
Ms. Slater, I do appreciate the feedback. You're getting a little beyond. We're about a minute and a half beyond the time that we'd allotted. And if it's going to be to
I think
continue
you've
to
got my
comment
point.
on members of council,
I think
thank
you got my point.
All right, we do have to ask if there are any questions of council for the presenter. Anybody wishing to address her, you can do so now. And seeing none, thank you for the presentation. We'll call again to the audience, and if there are members wishing to speak on this topic specifically, you'd be welcome to. And if you can just state your name for the public record, and we'll give you the 5 minutes of opportunity.
Thank you. Garth Booker from 112 Burns Place. Actually, my family works with some people here. I work with some other ones. And I got friends here that my kids play with too. So in the 10 years I lived at 112 Burns, we've had no water coming from the sewer system in that time frame. So I do appreciate some of the information that you guys have given here tonight. It's kind of funny because on one side, you know, as Phil said, was a lot of detail. Of course, me being an engineer, I'm looking for more detail. And I also do want to mention, I do appreciate the point about going towards gravity, because gravity works. You put in mechanical systems and a lot of other things, you're just passing it off to somebody else that's going to have failures. The one other thing I would like to actually ask at some point here too is taking the incident that happened in August, the end of August. We had about the same level of water in our basement as of the flood from the rainstorm. So it'd be interesting to take a look at the volumes if you can actually calculate what you thought that might have been from a broken pipe. You should be able to calculate that out to get an indication of what kind of water flows you did have, because we did end up with the same amount.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that's part of the more detailed analysis that still has to happen, but
Correct.
whatever information we receive, we'll be happy to make sure it's public.
Yeah. The one thing that I did take a bit of an offense to was when we talk about inflow with improper connections. Yes, that was in the past what they were, but they were approved. They are actual connections that were not improperly done. If you want them changed, ask us to change them, we will. The other couple questions I had here was during some of the construction that we're having, I was curious about how the sewer was being moved from one point to the other, because I know in front of my house, they used to actually have an open manhole with pump systems in it to pump from where the one connection was and where they're working to the other. So I do have some questions about open manholes that would have been open during the construction when we did have the July 12th flow or event, which could actually bring water just as it did from the incident that happened on August 30th. And then the other question I did have was some of the mitigations that have been put in place, such as lowering the pond level, which I'm assuming was because of some requirements for mitigation, more vac trucks, et cetera, et cetera. I guess the question in my head is if we're showing that we're already going to have an event like this, those things would not make a difference if you didn't think there was some issue with rainwater coming from the roads, et cetera, filling up the pond. Those are kind of, I got about another 40. No reason to go through them right here, but I do have a lot of other questions that do come up related to some of the information put in there, even around the construction strategy, around parallel work versus consecutive work, which if you did it from a certain standpoint to release the pressure at the bottom end coming up, then you have a different strategy which has a different effect. And even to the point where if you actually ran a fair amount of different tests on your model to come up with different rain events to know, you know, I hate to say this, who's in the zone and who isn't, because I know, like say, for 10 years I wasn't, never had an issue at all. So what I'm getting at here is, yeah, I know that we're trying to take care of everybody, but because of some of the things we've done and how we've done it, I think it's actually put other people at risk. Okay, thank you. Any
All
questions?
right, thank you, and I'll just get you to remain for a moment. If there are questions of council, now is the time to get your questions to this presenter. And I don't have lights on the board, but I do want to thank you for taking time to come in and express your views. And if you do have 40 more questions, I would hope that somehow you can connect with administration. Nobody around this table has the answer, but probably in the organization you should be able to get some responses to those things.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, I will ask if there's anybody in the audience wishing to address council on this topic. You're welcome to come forward now. Good evening. If you don't mind just identifying yourself for the public record, so just state your names and then you can have your time for council.
Okay. My name's Lisa, and we live at 136 Brett Drive.
I'm Dave Scanlon. We're homeowners out at 136 Brett Drive and also business owner. I guess we're here today to express our concerns and our frustrations of what's been going on here in front of our house. Now, it's my understanding that the company in question that's doing the construction in front of the house had broken a line.
Yeah.
Friday, August, I don't know.
I can't remember the exact day. No, it was on a Monday or Tuesday last week that it broke again and they shut the water off till 3 a.m.
And
Yeah.
nonetheless, we appreciate that they worked through the night to give us homeowners the water back. But my question is, where'd they go? Okay.
I bought this house. Well, I bought my house on Brett Drive in December, and I wasn't aware of any of the sewer problems. I had no idea. So I spent 3 years working my butt off to save money to buy a little home for my family. And then I spent tons of money and time, and I renovated the basement and built a home business in my basement, which supports my family. And now I'm even more concerned because if my basement floods, I've been lucky enough to this day that my basement hasn't flooded. I've spent hours down there just waiting and hoping that nothing happens. If it floods, my insurance company is not going to cover the cost of the loss of income that I make working there to support my family. So it's really scary. And at the same time, we see all this stuff happening, and when the contractors finally came in, they closed off our driveway. We have 4 kids, and trying to pack groceries in down the street, bring 4 kids in, and then my clients trying to come in and, bring their pets in to get groomed. And it's been really stressful. And now that last week all this stuff happened and now it's been at a complete stop, it's scary. And now that I listened to this and heard all this, that it's been going on for years, it's scaring me even more that I just bought this house. And in this 2 years of all this time and love and investment that I put into my home, at any time, there could be a storm and it can all be gone. Like, something needs to happen right away. I wouldn't even care, like you said, if they work day and night so that my family wouldn't be at risk and all the other small families in my community wouldn't be at risk either.
I know Mr. Mar mentioned that from what I know about the company that's doing the contracting, like, I'm not pointing fingers or anything, but my understanding is they're digging sand and gravel company. They don't have a lot of experience in construction, road construction, sewer maintenance, stuff like that. It's a concern of mine. Who did the background checks on this, and like, what are we doing to prevent companies coming in with? And I'm all for new companies learning new products, getting new contracts, but I just like to see something implemented where
Somebody who knows what
it's
they're
not
doing
going to
is
happen
doing
again.
it. Yeah.
It's not going to wreck our community. And like, the water's been cut off 4 times. I was
Emergency, yeah.
I was there Thursday, standing outside the lawn, watching the backhoe. We got a backhoe in front of our house, directly in front, 15 feet away, and another backhoe here, and a packer right in front, all in front of our place. And I watched the backhoe hit the line with its bucket, and it going, and the labor running, everybody's face, their arms were up, they're all freaking out. It wasn't planned. I can assure you right now, it wasn't planned. This has caused the business alone. She's had to cancel clientele. She's had, I'd say, a lost revenue, I can't even imagine, but it's been 4 or 5 times. And I'm grateful that they worked throughout the night, like I said earlier. I'm grateful that they did work throughout the night and got it fixed. I was willing to put up with the banging and the crashing and the kids waking up. That was fine with me. Give us the water back, right? Of course, the business being a business, but
It's been really stressful. I'd like to know
when are
they're
they
gonna
coming back
start.
to work?
Yeah.
Or kick them out and get somebody else in there. We need our home back, guys, and we need the business back. I just wanted to express.
Thank you very much for expressing the views and concerns that you have. And again, I have to have you wait just 1 second. And I do have a light on by Councillor Marr. So Councillor Marr, if you have a question or comment for our presenter.
So let me get this straight. You have these machines in front of your house and nothing's being done right now?
No, it's
5 days.
5 days that nobody's even been out there.
Five
There was a hydro back there once this week
Yeah.
for half a day.
A
but
vac truck came
Nothing's
in.
even moved.
So can we ask our administration why?
This is probably a good juncture to do that. So Kevin, if you're able to respond to the stop work order and what's going on there.
Through the chair to Councillor Marr, so there was a number of broken water lines last week. There was 4 in, I believe, 2 days. A couple of them were major. There was a couple services hit, but there was a 12-inch line and a 6-inch line that broke as well. So we've been having ongoing meetings with the contractor, and we weren't satisfied with this. So we issued a stop work order, and until they provide a plan that they will not have these damages to the water lines.
So how long is this going to, do we
Well,
expect?
My understanding is they've delivered a plan. We're just going through it with them now, and if it's acceptable, they would return to work. If we still have some concerns, they'll have to take some other measures before we let them return to work.
So, Madam Mayor, the trouble I'm having here is we're almost holding our citizens hostage in their own homes. And so don't we have in-house people who could just prepare it to get them out of the neighborhood, or at least keep it going while we're trying to mediate with these others? A work order doesn't, somehow it's more of a penalty to these folks than it is to the contractor.
So through the church, Councillor Marr, again, we're working through the issue, but the issue was we were having large customer outages frequently of water without water in their house. So the contractor has provided a plan that they can continue work and they're not going to be interrupting the residents' water supply. That's the main issue.
So do you have a good feel that it's going to be like within the next 48 hours, 24 hours?
I know engineering's received the plan. I'll have to follow up with them where we're at in terms of approving that plan.
And what's our plan to keep these folks in the know about what's happening?
Good point. Do you have any response on what we're doing for communications? So do we do a news release every time we have an update on the project?
I'll let the communications people correct me, but we'll do a news release, and we do a lot of work on the social media as well. So we can even deliver pamphlets door to door. That usually works pretty well as well, communicating what we're doing, so we can deliver a flyer if the work's restarting and that sort of thing.
Can I add into that? I know the company has been given flyers, and they have given us warnings when they had scheduled shutdowns, but it's the unscheduled ones. And I'd like to add too that the company did come to our house with a case of water when they did accidentally do it. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I've seen more laborers going with cases of water to people's houses. So I mean, they've been inclined to help
They're
out
trying
as
to help out, but
yeah.
still.
But still, like
We had no idea, like the
Mr.
whole
Marr
time they've
said.
stopped, nobody's come by and told us what's happening, when they're gonna start up again, like, there's been nothing since.
That's a
It's like
perfect
everybody got up and walked
explanation.
away and hasn't come back, so.
So you're right, it's nice to get a case of water, but it's better not to have water interruption, and that's what the stop
Yeah.
order is about, is to make sure
Yeah.
that they have a sufficient plan to ensure that that water
Doesn't
supply
happen
is not
again.
going to be.
So, Madam Mayor, what I'm hearing though is they'd rather have the personal touch where someone actually comes to the door and says, here's what's
yeah.
happening, because
Yep.
then you have an interaction if they have questions.
But that's what
They
we
can
just
ask.
heard from Kevin, and that it's possible to do personal handouts in the neighborhoods. So they've been doing it before, they can do it again. So instead of relying on social media to reach everybody's ears, doing a hand-delivered communication is the way to go.
As well as social media, there's a couple elderly people on our street that I assure you have no social media connection. I
Really?
speak to them
Because
on
I
a
thought they
daily
were the
basis.
best on Facebook. Just kidding.
I'm on there quite a bit.
All right, folks, I'm sorry. I'm
No.
gonna go to other lights on the board simply because I've got council. No, don't go anywhere. There's two more different questions for you from people. I've got to go to Councillor Alt and Councillor Stroud before I can let you go back.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Dave and Lisa, and also Garth and Diane before. I had more questions for admin before they left, so I'm going to kind of use this opportunity because they kind of relate to, especially what they were mentioning with the, I guess, people being nervous every time it rains right now. And we have had a lot of rainfall since July 12th, and I'm just wondering in terms of the mitigation that we put in place after July 12th, is the reason we haven't seen more of the flooding because of that mitigation, or in terms of how has the mitigation helped in easing some minds every time we see this rain right now? Or are we, once we get hit with another 1 in 50, are people going to be flooded basements again in the same area?
Okay, we'll go to Kevin on that one as well. My magic voice isn't working. I can try tapping the button, but there we
It's
go.
on now. Okay. Through the chair to Councillor Alt. So, yeah, we have the vac trucks position, but it's the issue is really about the intensity of the storm. You know, when you have a drizzle for a day or two, it's not an impact. It's these big thunderstorms that come through and drop 10, 15, 20 millimeters of rain in an hour. That's where the system gets surcharged. So that said, every time rain is in the forecast, the trucks are pre-positioned and our UGS people are out. But you know, I'd like to say that our plan has mitigated future events, but the fact of the matter is we haven't had the big intense storms that have really triggered those. So we're there and we're watching and we have the resources deployed, but the storms really haven't been intense enough since then.
Okay, and this may be a dumb question and following up on Councillor Marr in terms of you have two contractors that are working on it. And he mentioned dealing with the one. Is there a possibility of moving the other contractor? Or are they stuck on their location? If we can get the people with the residents on Brett helped out, where they can't even access their driveways, is there any way to double up and use those guys to go fix that problem?
So again, we're working through the contractual issues right now in the stop work order to get back to work here.
Okay, I'll save my comments till afterwards and stick to questions.
Sorry, can I into that?
Go ahead.
I understand that they're right now they have the whole block isolated, so they have us all isolated on that one stretch. My question is, why can't they do perhaps two or three or even 4 driveways at a time, and then as they move on, they can progress, right? Allowing everybody access to the driveways.
I might defer to MDAT here, our director. He's more familiar with the specific terms in the contract.
So the chair, actually, to mitigate the impact we have in the contract, that will not allow the contract to open more than 30 meters till they finish that particular section and to move to the next 30 meters. This way we are trying to minimize the impact of number of residents.
I'm sorry, as of right now, we have literally from one corner to one corner of 136, Brett. I'm not too sure where
It's
it
a whole
begins.
block.
It's not, it's
right
well
from-
over 30 meters, I assure you. Open street.
If I recall correctly, I mean, 30 meter is our max length that the contractor can open at once, but I can double check, or my project manager can check. Is 30 meter? So actually it's 30 meter that the contractor cannot open more than 30 meter once till they finish that particular section and move to the next section.
Yeah, it's a significant amount, like it's a full block.
I can't remember the exact street names. It's all the way from Brooks Place to the intersection to the school.
Okay, we're probably not going to solve it right here in the room tonight, but what I would request is that our Deputy CAO, Kevin, if you're able to look into this matter somehow and see if there's an increased efficiency that we can gain in any way, that would be appreciated. So work it offline and figure out what's possible. I do have another light for you, though. Councillor Stroud will be next, please.
Mayor, and through to Kevin, I was just wondering, is there any possibility that that machinery that's sitting in front of those homes can be moved? Scott?
There's a 3-foot dip down right now in front of our.
Roads ripped out, so.
Yeah. I should have brought pictures. I apologize, you guys. It's a lot easier to explain with pictures.
I'm pretty sure there'll be people taking drives by your house all night now.
We were just coming in here to see what was going on initially, and then we decided to speak because.
Through the church, Councillor Stroud, so, again, I'd have to go look at it, but my understanding is it is an open excavation. The contractor was required to safe the site, safe the pipes, make sure there'd be no more pipes bursting or anything like that. So the equipment is there, but, I guess the point is it's a construction zone that's fenced off. Like, it wouldn't be, we couldn't drive cars down the street if we got the equipment out of the way, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
All right. Good news. We'll let you take your seats again, and we will call to a new presenter. If there's anybody in the audience wishing to address council, you'll be given up to 5 minutes for your views, and then the opportunity for questions from council follows.
I just wanted to say thank you to everybody listening.
Thank you. Good evening, and if you can start with an introduction, just your name for the record, please.
My name's Skylar White. I live at 200 Brett Drive. I have a lot of information. I don't really know how much I should go into this, but I see a lot of residents in my neighborhood. We're all in quite a predicament, right? They don't have the proper insurance coverage for the damage that has been caused, right? And I got a letter from the city of Wood Buffalo explaining that they don't see the contractors being neglected. Now, my father's run an equipment company in BC doing city sewer and water for his whole life. The morning of July 12th, I went out at 6 o'clock in the morning when sewer started coming up into my house. I have a picture here because it's kind of hard to explain, but the sanitary bypass, like he was saying there, is controlled by those, when you were talking about that electrical box right there, that electrical box controls a generator, which is a downhole pump in the sanitary manhole for the sewer bypass on that construction, right? Now, both pumps were off for the sanitary bypass from coming down Brett Drive, going around to the other side. One was down at high temperature and one was just off because they have two there, high flow rates during the evenings and mornings when everybody's showering and everything like that. They use the second generator to compensate for the increased flow in the sanitary, right? Now, they've been having problems with that generator for a couple of weeks prior because I talk to them all the time, asking them what's going on. It was going down for high temperature, so they had the volutes on the generator open up with a block of wood to try and keep the thing running. Now I said, why don't you just go get a new generator? Because one evening that I came home from work, the kid who was there was looking at it. He said, well, the sewer's coming up in it and the generator's not working. He said, you've got to get the generator work because there's increased flow. So that's just based off with sewer. Don't allow any other storm because it hasn't rained in 2 months or whatever. Up until the July 12th storm, we'd had very little rain, right? Sorry, I'm a little anxious talking
I'm
about
trying
this.
to write, but I'm not keeping up with you, sorry.
So now the other thing is now they put that rock drainage ditch in, which from my understanding is to compensate if something water came up, it would allow it to go into the storm pond because they had the line pigged from the storm line into the storm pond. And it was, from my assumption, the two diesel pumps that were there pumped it into the ditch and then it went down through the rock for filtration and then they had an oil boom at the end of it for, I guess, increased oils or whatever, sediments and stuff like that from the construction, right? This is my understanding of it, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. Now, the morning of July 12th at 6 a.m., when I'm standing in the pouring rain, looking out at that, both pumps are off for the sanitary bypass. They got a 4-inch pump and a 6-inch diesel pump for the storm going into the pond. Neither of those pumps are running at full capacity, and I can tell you that because I work with pumps. I know what a running pump looks like, and it's not running right. The water is coming out of the storm manhole because it's not going into the pond, and those ponds aren't keeping up with the stormwater and going into the open sanitary manhole where the downhole pumps are because there's no manhole on it. Now, the rest of the way up the street, it blew storm manhole covers off. I don't know if you ever tried to pick up a storm manhole, but it's heavy. It blew those off, and there's water geysering out of the manholes, like 3 feet, like blowing out of the manhole. Now, why is it doing that? As far as I can tell, it's because the storm water isn't going through the storm line in the pond because there's a pig in the storm line. So once the contractor finally kind of got their stuff together, they released the pig on the storm line and let the water flow into the pond, which stopped the water from coming out of the storm lines, right? Now, when I look at that, how can anyone in this room explain to me how there's not contractor neglect there? And how the construction did not cause the flooding on 200 Brett Drive? He's lived there for 10 years. My neighbor down, 2 floors down has lived there for 20 years and never had a drop of rain come in their house. I've lived there for 5 years, and I've seen water flow down Brett Drive, level with the curb on both sides, flowing down the road. No water in the basements then. So how does, this is a big storm, I understand there's a lot of water, but how does people in the neighborhood go from no floods in 20 years to houses with 4 feet of water in their basement? Did it rain an extra 500 mils of rain or something, enough to compensate for all that water? Like, the sewer manhole was to the top, right? And I don't know really where I'm going with this, or the point I'm trying to make, but I'm pissed off, real pissed off, right? And me and my neighbors go to work every day, and this couple here, right? Like, we work and to make money, and now we have to pay $20,000, $30,000 to fix our basements because of what I can see in my eyes is contractor neglect. I don't think it's right.
Well, let me thank you for coming in and sharing the story, because again, being a person affected and right in the proximity and knowledgeable about the pumps and operations is a different perspective altogether. I don't know what you know, but I appreciate you sharing it with us, and certainly we've got some administration in the room that are still continuing to do some analysis, so I think your story is one that they've heard and will give consideration.
It's like in the diagram, it shows the roof drains going into the weeping tile, which me and all my neighbors, that's not the case, right? And weeping tile is based off groundwater. Like, the water all flows out easements and out the driveways. A little bit goes in there, but I don't know. It seems like maybe look at it a little bit more.
I have to ask you just to remain for a moment. If there are any questions of council, now's the time. But in the meantime, I'm sure your story will be something that administration will give consideration as they continue the investigation as well. So, Councillor Germain does have one for you.
I'm going to ask is that Sir be Scott? Scott be Skylar? Scott.
Skylar.
Right? Yeah. Be interviewed as part of the investigation, because his recount of being there on the ground on that day is valuable and could help guide our investigation. And I really appreciate you sharing that with us tonight, because it gives me a different perspective as well. So I appreciate that.
I'm sure it will.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will ask again if there's anybody in the audience wishing to address council for up to 5 minutes with your experience or views on this one. Good evening and welcome. For the record, if you can just identify yourself, please.
I'm Debbie Hahn, and one of the affected on Burrard Crescent. Obviously, we have two issues here. Skylar's is a different issue than ours, both very important, and the July 12th changed a whole bunch of lives, I think more than what you guys even realize. I don't even know where to start. I know our sewer system was in 20 years before houses were built. By the sounds of the report, it was outdated before our houses were built. And that's an issue. That should have been dealt with in 1998 when those houses were built. So to say it's just happened, it's not just happened. This has been ongoing. There has been floods before 2000. I guess my biggest disappointment is that There was a crisis here on July 12th. There was a huge crisis in this town of a lot of people lost their homes. Like, a lot of people had to leave. They were displaced because with raw sewage in their home, they could not stay there with kids and everything else. And there was not one person from the municipality that reached out to anybody. We didn't see anybody. At best, I would think they could have at least put garbage dumpsters, given you garbage dumpsters in your driveway. We were on our own again, and this is like, we're talking third and fourth times for some people, right? And there's people that don't have insurance. They've got young kids. There's one down the street, young family, had no insurance because it's his fourth time flooding, has a job offer in southern Alberta, can't sell his house. How could he? You're changing lives here, people. Like, please, 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 I'm begging you to do something. We can't change what's in the past, but I'm asking you to do what is right for these people because they don't have insurance. They're working their butts off in a town that's higher priced than anywhere else, trying to raise kids. And we're basically saying, well, that's okay. You know what? In another 5 years, it may flood, but that's okay. It's going to be fixed down the road. That's wrong. It's just wrong that this has happened. And I'm begging you guys to do the right thing and give these people some compensation because they've got nothing. And that's just my request for you. And if you guys need any information, I managed to get a whole bunch of information in a couple weeks from people. I don't know why the municipality couldn't do the same because we didn't see one person from the municipality come to our door and say even, sorry this happened, or what can we do, or, you know, like I said, put garbage bins out. There's so much extra cost that's coming out of our pockets, and who can afford an extra 40, 50 grand a year? And to say that us homeowners weren't responsible by putting in the backflow valves or the sump pumps, we did. We didn't claim any insurance the first couple times on our place because we didn't have our basement finished. So we put in a sump pump, we put in the backflow valve, we had everything done right. We did all the right stuff. We finished our basement, put in over 40 grand, finished it not even a year ago. It's all ripped out now. We have nothing left. It's become personal for me because 2 years ago, my mother passed away. I have a lot of her stuff in the basement. It's gone. That's how personal this is. So you guys really need to do something. We can't just ignore this anymore. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. If I can just get your name for a moment. If there are questions of council, council's now is the time to make those inquiries known. And there are not, but I appreciate your expression and your frustration and the hardships that people have gone through. And certainly council will give those consideration as we move forward. It may not be this evening, but we'll take into consideration all that we can as related to these incidents. Next question, anybody in the audience wishing to present to council, you can identify yourself at the podium and have up to 5 minutes to present your views on this. With nobody further coming forward, thank you very much. We'll bring our administration back to the podium so that council can begin the next phase. First thing would be to get a member of council put the motion on the floor tonight. The only information is to be, the only thing is to accept as information. There is subsequent information that will be coming forward, and if we can get this one put on the floor, what we'll do is have council open up any further questions of our administration and any debate you wish to enter into on the motion. Councillor Stroud, if you don't mind reading that one out just so we can get it official.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just said I have Debbie Hahn in front of the...
Pardon me?
I can't read it.
Oh, just like
It's okay,
Thank
administration, go ahead, have a seat.
Sorry, I move that the Confederation Way Sanitary Sewer Bypass Project, associated sewer backups, council report dated September 15, 2015 be accepted as information. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So councillors, you're now able to debate this if you wish to do so. I'm going to put a question to administration. We certainly heard a variety of representation from our citizens here this evening. In terms of the things that was communicated to council, was there anything new that you heard that you hadn't already considered in the report?
To the mayor, I mean, we have incident reports and everything for the situation on the 12th. We're going through and we're analyzing all that information. So, you know, certainly it would not hurt to get residents that were there and saw it, to get their input into it as well, to just double check the information we've received. You know, we will follow up tomorrow on the job sites, I guess, and see what state they're in terms of, you know, being shut down and trying to get them accessible again.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got several lights on the board, and I've seen some motions going back to our ledge assistants. So we'll start with Councillor Alt, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll turn this on. Oh, thank you. I have a motion to make, and I think I'll just put it on now and then can enter into debate off of that. Move that administration report back to council next week with a recommendation for financial support for residents affected by the July 12th and August 30th floods in Timberlea.
Okay, thank you very much. And as I said earlier, there's some consideration in the background, the way that we approach it. That's perfectly flexible, so the motion will give us the opportunity to try and find the right way to bring forward anything that we can. And council, because we have a motion on the floor, now the consideration that you have to give is to that motion specifically. After we've dealt with that one, then we can go back to more general. So at this point, I'm asking for debate on Councillor Alt's motion to request administration to bring back a report on potential for financial aid. So Councillor Germain, we'll go to you first. If you can stick to that topic, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor Blake. And through my questioning, that's exactly what I was getting towards, that to former Councillor Slater's point, it's about the human factor, and we got to step up and support our residents. And I think that you're wrecking my words. Don't wreck my words. I'm trying to do my words here. I'm not good with them. I think that when you look at and listen to the report and the information that we had in our engineering department and the public impact of the residents, that I hope that we can come back with some fair way to support the residents. And I will be supporting Councillor Alt's motion and looking forward to something coming back next week to quite frankly help and support these families. And I think it's the right thing to do. The other piece that we need to do a better job is to Debbie's point. When we had a hailstorm up in Prairie Creek, the then Deputy Mayor at the time made sure that there was garbage cans put out and support for residents to help clean up immediately and provide police and fire support and support at the time. And here we failed to do that. So I hope the learnings we have is that we are a caring organization, we care about residents, and in events we need to have our emergency action plan in place. So I will be supporting Councillor Alt's motion, and thank you, sir, for writing it up.
Thank you very much. We'll go now to Councillor Marr, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Alt, for bringing this forward. I think that you hit the nail on the head. Expediency is the word here. And Madam Mayor, we've done this before with a bus issue we had. I remember gentlemen leaving our council chambers to go deal with it at that moment. Tomorrow, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but you know, I know the situation this time. We can't do anything this evening, but that couple that were in here, Lisa and Dave, I think it was, they need to see, that whole street needs to see something happen. So, I mean, preparing the report for next week as to what's happening is one thing, but I think the expediency has to be maybe drop some other things we're doing right now and move, have a concentrated effort in that area. Since we missed it the first time, and I'll tell you, there's no one in the room that feels more embarrassed about that than myself, because I know that there were individuals within our municipality and not to lessen Deb's point on this, but there were people who took time off work, vacation time, to help people in that situation. And you know, I believe we could have done better, as Councillor Germain said. We've done it in the past. How we missed the boat on this one, I don't understand, but I'm certainly going to support Councillor Alt's report for next week, and let's just get some expediency on this.
Thank you very much. And we'll go now to Councillor Tatum, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through the chair. Thank you to Councillor Alt for bringing this forward. I know that Mr. Scoble had actually championed this idea before, and we've had some internal discussions about it. I just think that maybe we didn't get it to the table fast enough. So thank you for bringing it forward, and I'll be supporting your motion.
Okay, thank you very much. And that's the end of the lights on the board on the motion. So perhaps that's what we should do first, is just put that one to the vote. And if there's anything residual, we can go back to the original motion. You can have open floor on that as well. And 9 votes are in, and I think that's the number we're looking for, all in support of that. So we're hopeful that we'll see something palatable next week, of course, coming forward. Now, Council, it's just the rest of the information that was presented. As I say, it's part 1. There's another part that will come down the road, and the motion that Councillor the motion that Councillor Alt put forward, I hope will fill the gap in between, the space that will exist between now and the next report. So if there's anything from Council for debate points, you're welcome to raise those now. Otherwise, we can put it to the voting system. Councillor Tatum, I do see your light on. We'll go there next.
It's not really a debate point. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just don't want to leave this room tonight without validating everyone's comments that they had tonight, all of the presenters. And we have some real work to do as a municipality when it comes to customer service. We are not getting the customer service part right. We're not getting the urgency part right. We issue a stop work order last Thursday. 5 days later, we're still discussing when that plan's going to be coming forward, what's going on next. Like, if my water and sewer is ripped out and we're now into a season where it could snow any day, that's like a 24-hour time frame. That's an emergency. That's an urgency. The sense of urgency, the customer service, that is where we're failing time and time again. And it has to change. I don't know how we change that within the organization, but it has to change, and it has to change now. Everyone has to take responsibility for their part in it, and we just have to do a better job.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Tatum. All right, no other lights are on the board, and that's a good way to close it. So if we can get the system to queue up for the voting opportunity. And you can enter your yeas or nays at this time. That's 8 votes in, 9 votes are now in, and that will carry unanimously as well. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time and your information exchange this evening. I appreciate the efforts on behalf of Council. And to that end, we will adjourn the meeting and say thank you again.